Good evening. My name is Cleo Yasenchack. You all know me as Cleo, and my project this evening is called Tracing the Hanasitso, Exposure to Uranium on the Navajo Nation. Before we begin, I'm actually going to tell you guys a couple of stories. One of them is about the first people. When they arrived in the Fourth World, the Holy People gave them a choice. They could either choose between tchaladine or sitso. Tchaladine is yellow corn pollen and is used traditionally in ceremonies and in communicating with the Holy People, as well as in growing corn for consumption. Because of this, the first people chose tchaladine, and as a stipulation of their choice, the Holy People put sitso in the ground and told them never to dig it up. And that's how it was for a while. The second story is about the hero twins. They were born of changing women and raised knowing that monsters devoured the Diné. And one day they told their mother, we're going to slay the monsters, and they did so by following 4 simple steps. First, you have to name the monster. Then you have to know its fellow monsters, use appropriate weapons, and have a plan of attack. So, following this outline, I'm going to introduce to you a new monster, devouring people in the Navajo Nation. I'm going to inform you of its fellow monsters. I'm going to show you what my weapons of choice were, and the plan of attack is to assess uranium's influence on the current population. The Navajo Nation is located primarily in northeastern Arizona, but can also be found in southeastern Utah and northwestern New Mexico. This map is showing the major population places for the Navajo Nation. This includes areas such as Flagstaff, Show Low, and this page, which are off the reservation but are still considered to be in Navajo country. This map is showing the 247 unreclaimed uranium mines and uranium mines of unknown status. There are 45 surface mines and 102 underground mines. Sitso means yellow dirt, yellow monster, or uranium. Uranium can be found in breccia pipes that are vertical or near vertical, circular to elliptical bodies of broken rock. Due to this formation structure, the uranium ore was mined by various means. It can be stripped and mined in open pit methods and underground in a modified room pillar system. When you're doing the modified room pillar system, 15 to 20% of the ore remains in the pillars to support the roof of the mine. Mining began in 1944 and it lasted until 1986. During this period of time, 3.9 million tons of yellow cake, or refined uranium, was mined from more than 1,000 mines and 4 processing mills. During this time, no one informed the miners that the dust on their clothes, the materials used to build floors and reinforce their homes, was radioactive. No one informed that the tailing piles and the pools created by pits and rainwater the children swam in was radioactive. The federal government, the mining companies, nor the Navajo Nation tribal government told the miners that they and their families were at risk. By 1986, the mines, along with their waste piles, open tunnels, and pits, were abandoned with no concern for human safety. What makes uranium dangerous, especially uranium-220 or 238, is that as it decays, or it has a half-life of 4.47 billion years, and as it decays, it releases particles called radon daughters. A half-life is the amount of time needed for half of a sample of unstable atoms or particles to undergo decay. So as it releases these radon daughters, known as radium-226 and radon-222, these two are especially hazardous because these two are gaseous particles. And what typically happens is when they're inhaled, you exhale them. So they don't stick around, they don't cause any problems for you. However, what happens when blasting from mines is the particles stick to dust particulates, which you breathe in and get stuck to your lungs, and that causes problems. The medical ramifications include cancer of the brain, salivary gland, pharynx and thyroid, esophagus, lungs and breast, bile ducts, liver and gallbladder, stomach, pancreas, small intestine and colon, urinary bladder and ovaries, as well as leukemia, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and hypertension, heart disease, autoimmune diseases, chromosomal disorders, single gene mutations, physical disfigurement, and birth defects, with an additional 33 other medical ramifications. So, in 2007, the EPA released a report that was updating a 1983 report on technologically enhance naturally occurring radioactive materials from uranium mining. This table is taken from the 2007 report and shows the estimated individual lifetime fatal cancer risk for various exposures to radon decay products. A maximum exposed individual is modeled to be living within 1 mile downwind from an inactive mine, while an average exposed individual is modeled to be living within 50 miles of an inactive mine. The EPA Superfund program defines safe exposure as being between 1 times 10 to the -4th to 1 times 10 to the -6th. So using the contents of this table as well as the contents of this report, this is what one abandoned uranium mine with 150-mile buffer looks like. And then this is what 247 mines and 247 50-mile buffers looks like. Based on this map, the logical assumption would be that an individual's exposure risk would increase. For example, if an individual lived at the point indicated by the black star here, it can be logically assumed that because they live within 2 overlapping buffers, their exposure risk would double. So using this assumption, I created a model builder model called Count Overlapping Polygons, provided by Dale Honeycutt from Esri. And as we expected, it counted the overlapping polygons. However, the output means little if you don't know what the population in the area looks like. So I created a population density surface using census blocks, feature to point, and kernel density. Kernel density calculates a magnitude per unit area from point or polyline features using a kernel function to fit a smoothly tapered surface to each point or polyline. So for example, if population is the weight for all these points here, the output from the kernel density would show that areas, the darker blue areas would be areas of higher population. So my output looks like this. And here you will find Flagstaff has a higher population as indicated in white, with lower populations indicated in black. Here you'll find Window Rock, Chinle, and Tuba City. When overlaid with the exposure overlaps, with blue indicating areas of relatively low exposure and areas of high exposure, what you'll find is that in this little sliver of an area just off to the left of this triangular area, there are 137 overlaps. And in this triangular area, there is 122. While in the Flagstaff and Tuba City area, there are 17. So looking at this, it means also nothing to if you don't connect it back to the people or something that matters statistically. So in 1956, there was an article published called Cancer Immunity in the Navajo. It was published by a man named C.G. Salisbury, which detailed a cancer death rate that was lower than the general U.S. population. However, from the early 1970s to the 1990s, the cancer death rate has doubled according to the Indian Health Service data, despite the overall U.S. cancer rate declining during the same period of time. So I got cancer data from the Arizona Department of Health Services for 2010 to correlate with the 2010 census data. The only cancer that I could not represent as previously listed was the pharynx, and so it is being modeled using the other category. Unfortunately, with the cancer data, it's only at the county level. And so what you see here is green is for Coconino, red is for Navajo, and blue is for Apache counties. In preparation for a linear regression, I joined the cancer data to an Arizona County shapefile and ran it through a make feature layer so I could use the ratio policy. And then I intersected that with census tracts so I can get a smaller polygon to model with. However, that too was also ran through the make feature layer to use the ratio policy so I can intersect it with the overlaps for Arizona. Then that output was used for the linear regression, and the dependent variable was cancer rate, and the explanatory variables are exposure, total population, Native American population, and white population. These are the results for the OLS. What you'll see here is that the probability and robust statistics, as well as the Concord statistic, are all significant. When looking at these three individually, if the Concord statistic is significant, that means you can only trust your robust. But I got zeros for days, so I'm okay. That's what I thought. But then you look at the coefficient, and I have negative coefficients, and that means that the model cannot be trusted. This is supported by the Yarke-Barrett statistic, which is significant, which you don't want. You want it to be insignificant. So I just ran with it anyway. I ran the geographically weighted regression, and somehow or another got an increased adjusted R squared. An adjusted R squared is like a grade on a test. If it increases, that means your model's doing better. The adjusted R squared for the OLS was 15.39%, and the GWR was 61.24%. However, when you run the standard residuals for the GWR through a spatial autocorrelation Moran's-I, the model or the tool finds that the standard residuals are clustered as seen here, off to the right. This means the model also cannot be trusted. Unfortunately, this isn't going to change anytime soon. The problem was with the data, the cancer data itself, because it's at the county level. So my work acts as mile marker 1. About a week ago, I received an email from Lily Lane from the Navajo Nation EPA. She provided me with my data, and she informed me that there's a student at the University of California, San Diego, who's also trying to study exposure for the Navajo Nation, but going about it in a different way. And he got a hold of me, and we discussed my results, and we discussed my project and whatnot. We discussed his as well to help figure out how he could do things differently. And unfortunately, what he found, I was informed today that he got inconclusive results as well as I did. So his is now mile marker 2. In 2015, the Arizona Department of Health Services is going to release their cancer data at what they call the CHA level, the Community Health Analysis Area. Unfortunately, the Navajo Reservation, my mouse will pop up, is still fairly generalized, but the areas surrounding it are not, and it's more at the sub-county level. So maybe using the data at that level will provide better results. Unfortunately, we're not going to find that out anytime soon. So, in conclusion, our monster's name is Cleo for uranium. Its fellow monsters are radium, radon, cancer, and a slew of other medical problems. The appropriate weapons include a willingness to make an attempt, data at a better scale, and time. The plan of attack remains the same: to accurately assess his or uranium's influence on the current population. And this isn't just a tribal problem, it's also a state problem, because the exposure extends beyond the boundaries of the reservation. So if it can be recognized as such using geography and statistics, then progress towards reclaiming abandoned mines may increase and cause less problems in the future. Here are my references and questions.